Listening back to this show from Teachers Talk Radio. You can catch up with all our shows by visiting our YouTube channel or by listening back at ttradio.org. Don't forget to like and subscribe to enjoy more live education conversation from TTR. We hope you enjoy this show.
Outstanding and world-class vision and world-class this.
I'm a real leadership geek, honestly. I've spent my whole career reading books and chatting to people.
I just find the whole thing and the announcement, the way it's been announced, bizarre.
If you could move away from a model where teachers are so intensely focused.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Teachers Talk Radio on this Wednesday evening. I hope that your summer is going well so far. This evening, we're going to be looking at social media for teachers, and we're going to be exploring what's been going on in the social world for teachers over the last few years. We're going to look at X, formerly known as Twitter. We're going to look at LinkedIn. We're going to look at Blue Sky. We might touch on some others too, depending on the time that we get. And really, there's two things we're going to be looking at. Number one is, what is the current state of play for these websites for teachers? How many teachers are on them? You know, what do they look and feel like for a teacher using them? Are they still worth using for teachers? And the second part of it, I guess, will be, if you're using one of those networks, how can you get the best out of it? So whether that be tips in terms of, you know, what to post, when to post, how to post, what not to do, what to do, and so on. So there's really twofold things that we're going to do. And I've got a great guest tonight. I've got Adam Boxer, who again has been using Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, for years. I mean, we'll find out exactly how long in a minute. I'll bring him on. But yeah, I've got Adam on with me, and it'll be great to have a conversation about some of the old days of Twitter. I think myself and Adam have been on it since, well, I've been on it since 2015. I think probably maybe similar for Adam, but we'll talk about the old days. We'll talk about what's happening now with it, and where it might go from here. Just before I bring Adam on, just a big shout out to our sponsors tonight, Hachette Learning, formerly known as John Catt. If you are looking for a professional development book or resource this academic year, then head over to the website of Hachette Learning. Just Google Hachette Learning. Head over there and grab yourself any title you could think of. Any topic in teaching that could literally enter your mind is on the Hachette Learning website. If I'm wrong, then drop a tweet in. Probably will be. There'll be something missing from that website, but I guarantee if you use the search box, something's going to show up for anything you can think of. Thousands of titles at your fingertips. So thank you, Hachette Learning, for supporting Teachers Talk Radio. And of course, I will mention this later as well, but I think you should check out another podcast. It's called the Chalk and Talk podcast with Anna Stokey. Now, if you haven't heard of Anna Stokey, she's based in Canada. She has a podcast called Chalk and Talk. It's all about evidence-informed practice. She's got lots and lots of guests. In fact, international guests. She had Nick Gibb on about a couple of months ago. But she's had lots and lots of Daisy Christodoulou, lots of different people from across the world of teaching. And you should definitely check out the Chalk and Talk podcast as well. If you enjoy this, then you might enjoy that. And the last thing to mention is TTR, of course. Subscribe to our newsletter via the website, ttradio.org. Let's bring Adam on to talk about social media. Adam, good evening.
Hello.
How are you doing? All right?
Yeah, I'm okay. I'm tired, but I'm okay.
Tell us about your day. You done anything interesting?
Oh boy. Well, I started work at about 7 a.m. So that's when I normally start work at the moment. And my lovely wife looks after my kids because they're on holiday at the moment. So she looks after them till she starts working. I then ignore them and carry on working for a bit. and then take them to camp, which is this wonderful, wonderful, magical place where they are out of my care for 6 hours. I then crack on with some more work. I then went to pick them up from. This is all very exciting. The listeners are engaged. I picked them up, and actually today was exciting because we had to take our tortoise to the vet. So we took our tortoise to the vet. She's fine, just a checkup. Don't worry. For her second worming dose, as well as a stool analysis. And then we came back home. We gave the kids dinner. I cooked some meatballs, put the kids to bed, ate my meatballs, and now I'm here.
Did you say turtle or tortoise? Are they the same thing?
Tortoise. They're not the same thing. So turtles tend to be aquatic, whereas tortoises are terrestrial. They live on land.
And why did you choose a tortoise as a pet?
Good question. We didn't choose the tortoise. Bobble, we inherited her from some friends who could not care for her any longer. So we now look after her. She has a lovely enclosure in the garden. Every so often, I put up a picture online where people can see if they can spot the tortoise, because she's very, very good at camouflage.
I saw that.
Everything is, there's a couple of video cameras in there. It's fox-proofed. There's an outdoor heated house type thing. So, yeah.
I'm pretty sure, I could be wrong on this. I think Patrick Otley O'Connor? He always used to post. I wondered whether he'd inspired you or whether that was just completely separate.
No, well, I don't really get inspired. It's not something that I do. So it's because I'm dead inside.
Talking of inspiration, let's turn our attention to the world of social media. So I thought we could start with Twitter. Do you want to? Let's start off then. Tell me your sort of social media journey. Let's call it that, right? Let's not just say Twitter, but I think it just started there, didn't it? But tell us why you joined it and what you were hoping to get out of it, and how things have sort of progressed from there with it. Yeah, so I remember I've always been a bit of a social media junkie, because I love argument and I love debate. Not always for the best. It's not it's like a bit of a destructive hobby, I suppose. I guess all hobbies are though, right? We always like the whole point of a hobby is that if you really get into it, to you it's amazing, and everyone else is like, I think maybe you might be spending a bit too much time crocheting here and stuff like that. So I've always been a bit of a social media junkie, because I remember vividly when I got my first smartphone, and like all of a sudden I could like have debates while I was like walking to the train to go to uni and stuff. And I did a lot of debating actually on Facebook, like while I was at uni in the 2010 and onwards. But that was mostly with like friends, family, and that was like politics, philosophy, religion, that kind of thing. And then I think I joined Twitter because my father-in-law, you won't like this, Tom, but my father-in-law works for Ofsted. He's actually an HMI, but he's one of the good ones. So he's always been in education, and he used to get the tests every week. And once he was done with it, I'd read it afterwards, because I couldn't afford that. So I'd read the test cover to cover every single week. This is when I was like NQT and training and stuff. And there was a column by a guy who you might have heard of called Tom Bennett. Yeah. So Tom Bennett, this is really back in the day, used to write a column called The Behavior Guru or something. And he was in the forums, in the TES forums, wasn't he?
Tom. Well, I didn't do the TES forums, but I read the mag every week. Yeah. And basically at one point he started writing about evidence-based practice and research ed and stuff like that, and started recommending Twitter as the place to go to enjoy argument and debate and stuff like that. So I joined. I don't know when that was. Maybe 16, maybe around 2016. Yeah. And I started blogging like everybody else was at the time. And like Twitter in those days was alive. It was like, the word hadn't been invented yet, but it was vibey, right? It was like super on fire. And everyone was blogging, and everyone was writing, and everyone was sharing and arguing. And some of those arguments weren't great, right? Like toxic. And I confess, I was a part of that, right? I gave as good as I got, and I got as good as I gave, and that's how it was. And there were elements of that debate that were nasty and unpleasant.
I
And,
feel like
and again,
I feel like you're talking about like being a soldier in a war or something. In like you're in the war, I came as good as I got. You know.
yeah.
It's all very-
Maybe I'm over dramatizing, but like, but it was, you know, you remember what it was like. It was pretty full on, and I guess. Sorry, say again.
Feisty,
feisty, and there were some things that were genuinely unpleasant, right? Like, people were doxing people. So doxing is when someone has an anonymous account for whatever reason, and somebody chooses to like try and reveal who they are. It's one of the like most classically awful internet behaviors that you can do. People were trying to report others to their employers and tagging in their employers, which again is just like really not a nice thing to do.
I did have that actually myself in about, it must have been 4 or 5 years ago now. There was an anonymous letter sent to my then school, signed by parent, right? And fortunately for me, it did go to the governors. Fortunately for me, the governors just dismissed it out of hand. But I mean, you know, because there was nothing in it really other than sort of a diatribe. But still, it's one of them where it happens, or it used to happen. Now probably don't. Probably can't.
I don't know. I've had it 3 times, and it's not fun. It's really, really not fun, and it makes things feel very, very real, very, very quickly. And you not only feel like anxious for yourself, but also it's like the work. My school is like a sacred place that does like holy work, right? Like the work that a school does is not neutral, right? Schools improve students' lives. That is their job. That is their prime ethical directive. And anything that takes away from that is like unethical. It's philosophically wrong. It's morally repugnant to me. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, well, my head is now going to have to waste time dealing with this nonsense. And like, I caused that. I say I caused that, right? I'm not the proximal cause in the sense that I didn't write the letter, but I'm the ultimate cause in the sense that it came because of something that I did or didn't do online. And like these things are never like, I never did anything to warrant that kind of thing. But if I hadn't have been there, it wouldn't have happened. So that there's like a tremendous sense of angst. And I know that like I mouth off and stuff like that. And, you know, I'm hoping, Tom, you know this about me, but I'm hoping that, you know, maybe people don't, I don't know, but I like try as hard as I can to always be honest and I like live my heart.
I agree with that. Like, I mean, I'm not just saying this. I mean, I would say to your face now publicly on this show, on this stream, if I disagree with that. I mean, we've clashed before on X probably 100 times. Not clash, maybe that's too deep a term, but we've been in debates. Let's say that, and that's part and part. If you're going to put yourself out there and have opinions, people are going to come back and have different opinions, and that's what it's all about. For me, you haven't stepped over the line at any point since I've been on X. In terms of, I mean, people will have different interpretations of step over the line. This is my interpretation. My threshold is like, I'm very much, let's have disagreements. Let's have people say stuff that they really think and actually get it out there. And let's not sort of, necessarily unfollow or block or send a letter to a school if we disagree with somebody. Obviously, it's going to be different if it's something that, you know, is like a safeguarding concern or I don't know. You could list probably a number of things that might be different to that. But if it's an opinion about, you know, the way people are teaching, or an opinion about the way schools are run, or an opinion about, you know, the politics of schools and education, then, you know, generally speaking, I think that's part and parcel of social media, isn't it?
Yeah, I'd sort of broadly agree with that, and I think to like come back to stories. So we had at the time fierce and vibey debate and discussion. We had loads of blogs the whole time, but we did also have the bad behaviours. So the doxing, reporting to employers. There was also a lot of pile-on type stuff. And this happened quite a bit and shouldn't have happened. And this was, again, from all sides, self-included. So a pylon is basically someone says something that you don't agree with, and you try and project it out to your followers so that everyone can then say how much they disagree with this person. But you've got to realize that there's a power dynamic here. So for example, I'm very blessed now. I've been around a long time. I have a lot of followers on Twitter. So if an account who's got like 200 followers or whatever says something that I don't like, and I quote that, and I say, look at this idiot, they don't know what they're talking about. And suddenly there's like 50 people replying saying, you're an idiot because of this, you're an idiot because of this, like, that's so wrong, I can't believe you think this, da da da. That's like really bad behavior, and it's not nice. And stuff like that did happen. You know, overall, I think it was a positive time. And I think that education has shifted in this country for the better because of it. But as time went on, me personally, I know that I started consciously trying to get into healthier habits. So I did actually do quite a lot of blocking. And there were a lot of people who I just instantly just blocked, right? Like instead of like getting into that argument or going down that rabbit hole, just block. And that made my life a lot better, like qualitatively better, because I wasn't getting into stupid arguments with stupid people who were just trolling me. And I was it just wasn't happening. I wasn't like getting lost there because I've got an ego, right? So if I post X and someone else posts Y, like I feel a real need to like explain why Y is incorrect and like to justify myself, because I'm like, people could be reading. But now I'm like, I give much less of a shit. Do we swear on this show? I can't remember.
Probably not, but whatever.
Okay, sorry. So I care less. Where was I? Yeah, so that's made like my life quite a lot healthier online. And actually, I've also blocked a lot of people from like groups or I guess like philosophies that I would agree with. So there are a lot of people that who are broadly like in like my camp, I guess, if you'd call it that, for like educational philosophy, things we agree with, things we espouse and preach. But I've just blocked them. And the reason for that is because I was getting dragged into their stupid arguments, right? Like they were doing the things that I used to do, which is going down these rabbit holes, a million reply, tweet threads and stuff, like constant. And like I was getting sucked into this stuff. So I found that just by blocking them, I didn't see it anymore. And it just meant that I didn't feel the need to like challenge all of those opinions in a way that wasn't constructive. That was kind of the journey that I was on. And again, I'm not claiming to be any kind of saint. Like I still screwed up. I still messed up. I still made mistakes. Like we all do, me probably more than others. But then two things happened. The two things that happened were Musk took over Twitter and COVID. So, and I think there were some other things probably taking place at the time, but those are like the two big events. So what that has driven, okay, is that this stat is going to blow your mind, okay? So the stats that I'm using now are from TeacherTapp. Can I give a quick shout out to TeacherTapp?
Sure.
Yeah,
for it.
Great organization.
Day today.
Sorry?
It's our TeacherTapp takeover day today on Teachers Talk Radio. We're asking questions today. So go
fantastic.
For it.
Love TeacherTapp. So TeacherTapp is a polling organization. You can get the app onto your phone. They'll ask you a few questions every single day. They ask now, I think, over 10,000 teachers basically every single day. And they get this amazing like tranche of data and knowledge about what the profession does. And they'll also provide you with like blogs, things you can read. And they also do school surveys. So they take the same like knowledge and insight and apply it to. So if we can find out really well what teachers think, why can't we help you in your school find out what your teachers think and then help your organization improve? So this data comes from them. Okay. In 2019, okay, 70% of teachers used Twitter at least once for work-related activities in the past week. 70%. Okay.
And when was that surveyed though?
That was 2019.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I can believe that though. I can believe that.
2025, that stat is 19%.
Yeah. Yeah. Although I would caveat that with something which is, there's been a 30% daily active user reduction in the UK on Twitter in general. 8% drop according to Ofcom. But Reuters released a report semi-recently, a couple of months ago, and X was still up there for news. So, okay, example being, when Musk, we'll dig into this a bit more, but basically when Musk took over Twitter, I mean, to give context to people listening to this who might never have used Twitter, when Twitter, the education community had this thing on Twitter basically called EduTwitter, right, where everybody who was sort of on Twitter, who was the teacher, was posting in this sort of broad spectrum of EduTwitter. And then obviously 2023, Musk took over, and a lot of people said we're immediately leaving Twitter for various reasons, but mainly because they disagree with Musk's politics. And also, well, we'll come on to a year later, actually, 2024, during the summer riots, Musk then went for it again with Starmer, and that then sort of was the second wave, if you like, sort of another wave of people going. However, I have anecdotally noticed that in the last maybe couple of months, couple of months, there has been maybe a small uptick in sort of engagement on the app from an education point of view. I've seen a couple of accounts coming back from wherever they've been. I also think there are probably a number of people who say they've left, still have their accounts, and use them to read the news and sort of lurk without engaging at all. So I think I believe what you're saying is true in terms of the drop in people using it for work-related purposes, but I don't necessarily buy into the idea that it isn't being used, or that people have sort of closed the door on it. I mean, people are sort of, I mean, obviously we'll talk about this later, but a lot of people have joined, some people have joined Blue Sky, some people have joined Threads, some people have joined LinkedIn or are using LinkedIn more as a social network, whereas before they were using it just as a portable CV. And some have started using Substack, some have started using Reddit, some have started using, some have just left completely. And in fact, I think a number have left completely. And one of the stats that I saw from one of those same surveys that you've been looking at was the only social network that is growing for teachers was TikTok. And from being on TikTok, that's probably what I've seen as well. It seems to be quite a few teachers on there. The content is completely different. It's, it's more along the lines of the edutainment sort of vibes on TikTok, I would say. But certainly, but maybe that's more of what teachers want, because they're knackered and they just want to scroll through a feed of edutaining stuff. So that's where I sort of see it. But anyway, Adam, before we dig it, I'll come back to what you're saying because it is really, really interesting. But before that, I've got a quiz for you. Do you want to do my quiz?
Ooh, always. I love a quiz.
I'm going to give you 4 of the old school, and for anybody listening to this or watching this back who's never been on Twitter, so we mentioned about this thing called EduTwitter, which has been around probably since 2010. Some of the early adopters were there maybe 2009, 2010, 2011. And since then, there's been major moments in the history of EduTwitter, some major spats that nobody outside of this small little sad world will understand. But Adam, your quiz is going to be, I'm going to give you 4 of the most infamous spats that have ever happened on what was called Twitter. And
yes,
by the name of them, you need to identify what happened in said spat.
Oh, I'm so here for it. Yes, this is the best game ever.
All right, are you ready for number 1?
Hit me.
Raptorgate.
Yes. Oh, of course I remember Raptorgate. So this was actually relatively recent. So this was
it wasn't. Was it?
Yeah, it was like 2018 or 2019.
Yeah. It depends what you term as recent. Yeah.
So this was when someone at a Research Ed conference, who I think it might have been Sam Strickland, but I can't remember.
No.
It was
Wrong.
someone. It was someone like that, but they basically had this picture on the slide, I think, of that like thing of Chris Pratt holding back the Raptors and saying No, was it Ben Newmark? Yes, it was Ben Newmark, and said that teaching is like you have to like hold back the Raptors or something, and basically went mental because people were like, how dare you accuse like children of being like raptors, like it's such a terrible metaphor, blah 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 blah. And then like so like a whole bunch of like the nice Be Kind crew like pitched in here saying it's awful to refer to children as raptors, and then everyone on the less Be Kind crew was like, well, hang on a second, the king of the Be Kind crew wrote a book called Getting the Buggers to Behave. So why is it okay to refer to them as buggers but not as raptors? Yes, that was a great one. Thank you, Tom. Did I get it right eventually? I got
This took me a while of digging through searching, but this was the original quote from Ben Newmark. Children are like,
but he's quoting someone. I don't know who originally said it.
I thought that was him who said it. I think he was going through things that he'd said. I could be completely wrong on that.
Maybe. Who knows?
Yeah, anyway, it blew up, and obviously it was a huge thing, and it trended. So Raptorgate was trending across the UK at that point. There's a screen grab of Raptorgate trending, and people were clicking on it thinking it was something about, I don't know, like some really serious deal about like the genetic modification of animals. It wasn't. It was just from a conference where someone had talked about velociraptors being like kids. Anyway, that was one classic one.
Okay.
Are you ready for number 2?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. I feel like you're going to get all of these.
Windowgate. Yeah, I was going to say it's Rebecca Lee. She was then Rebecca Foster. So you put the name on. I was going to be able to tell you.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so she said that she... sorry?
You've still got to know the story.
But this is a follow-up. So this was she... So what you're showing here is a follow-up. So she tweeted about... she just took a picture of her classroom. And basically it was just like a normal, nice classroom. And it's got windows at the back and on the side. And she's got a beautiful view. And the kids are just like... the kids are in the room. The tables and desks are just facing the board or whatever. And someone was like, why don't you turn the chairs around so the children can see the view? And it was basically like, everyone else was like, are you mad? And then it just turned into this like huge thing. And if I remember correctly, there ended up being a debate about Shakespeare, like about whether or not Shakespeare was any good. It like just went completely, because Rebecca is an English teacher and Rebecca takes no shit, right? Rebecca is like, I love her. She's an amazing person. And she's more than happy to like call out nonsense, and it just went bonkers, and it lasted for days and days and days. And then eventually she did some like follow-up where she'd like rearrange the classroom to face all the windows and stuff. That was a really good one. That was quality. Nonsense.
That went big. Windowgate. I think that was like 2017 or something in the annals of AV Twitter. Let's have a look at the next one.
Biscuitgate. So this is when a well-known Twitter account, Gwendelope, sent biscuits to Sean Harford. So Sean Harford was the director of education at Ofsted, which meant he was basically second in charge. And at the time, it was towards the end of Will Shaw. I don't think Spielman had taken over yet. But no. Sean was basically a big legend. Because what Sean did is Sean was... Sorry?
In your opinion?
Yeah, correct. I met Sean once. I don't know what he does now. I think Sean is a great example of... you had Nick Gibb on your show recently as well. I think like I disagree with Nick Gibb a lot about stuff. And I think a lot of the stuff he did and stood for, I don't agree with and I won't agree with. But I never have doubted once whether or not he really cares. I think he really, really cares. I think he really, really wanted to do a good job. And I think Sean Harford was exactly the same. What he tried to do is he tried to get online. He tried to join this community and basically myth bust, right? So he wanted to explain what Ofsted were doing, what Ofsted weren't doing. He wanted to challenge misconceptions. He wanted to help the sector drive down workload and stuff like that. And it was around that time, Sean was the guy who was driving stuff like, banning lesson observations, right? So not banning lesson grading. So lesson grading was a big thing at the time. So someone would come observe you for 20 minutes and they'd give you personally a grade for that lesson. And it was Sean in response to edu bloggers and edu tweeters who decided to pull the pin on that and say, we're not doing that anymore. The marking stuff all came from Sean. You can still see them. The Mythbusters are online. If you just search Ofsted Mythbusters, you'll see the documents they were putting out in 16, 17, and 18. But anyway, where was I? So they sent, so this account sent Sean the biscuits. And I can't remember why, because there'd been some kind of big argument or pile-on or whatever about Sean. I don't know, because he was always getting involved in these fracases, and it just went, again, bonkers. And loads of people talking about how inappropriate it was to send him biscuits and stuff like that. So yeah, and that one ran, I think, for a little while. And actually, Sean is a casualty of edu Twitter. Sean left because he basically had enough, and he left Ofsted. I don't know what he does now. I think he's a thoroughly decent bloke. And I think that was a shame. I think that was a big shame.
We've got the last. You pretty much nailed that. We've got the last one, Adam.
Yep.
Which is this one.
Okay. So this was you, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. So Listgate was you. You posted a poster of a lot of people that you follow and listen to and think are interesting, and you were trying to direct people to them. I note that Adam Boxer is not on your poster.
He actually is on the far left, fourth row down.
Well, I've never been accused of being on the far left. Fourth row down. Oh, yes, there he is. Yes, opinions commentary. Okay, good work. Well done. But basically, I think someone took exception to the fact there weren't enough Black or minority ethnic people on the poster. And that one went wild again. And I don't think you were too shy about disagreeing with that particular characterization. So
Yeah.
Yes.
That was a big
good
one. I mean, there's been many others I could have thrown in there, but pretty much your Twitter history, Adam. You've passed with flying colours,
Yes.
4 out of 4. You've nailed all the biggest, or not all of them, because there were there's like one every week, but these were like some of the big ones. And
a lot of those ones, a lot of them, like, they feel, some of them feel really nonsensy. Like Raptorgate, it feels like nonsense. The Windows, it feels like nonsense. But like, there are real people at the end of this, and Sean Harford ultimately left Twitter. You probably wouldn't have particularly enjoyed being called a racist by 10,000 strangers. Like, that's not fun. And then when you look below the line, and this is before Musk, when you look below the line, there will be people calling you a Nazi, calling you a fascist, and people putting pictures of like Michaela School up with like a caption of Arbeit macht frei from Auschwitz. Like this is nasty stuff, and it's nasty stuff that predated Musk. But despite all of that, it was still overall, for me, a force for the good.
Totally agree with that. I think, I mean, in terms of what you, because again, we talked about the user drop. I don't think Twitter's dead, by any means. Certainly the user base has dropped. I mean, there's no doubt about that, but I don't think it's dead. But if you were sort of setting up an account now on Twitter, which is almost like, I don't know, setting up an account in the late 70s after rock and roll, you're getting like the last sort of embers of rock and roll, the very end of it. What would your sort of tips be these days for getting the most out of that particular social platform?
That's a great question. It's hard for me to say, because I feel a bit, I don't know, like, it's a while since I was there, right? It's a while since I didn't have that wonderful community around me and those connections that I'm so grateful to have and to learn from and to communicate with. I think if someone was going to join now, I would say, for me, the most important thing is to do something. So another one of these stats from TeacherTapp is they characterize different users by the way that they use. And one of the kind of groups of users, everyone, by the way, you know, I'm lucky. I work in school, but I also work out of school in the private sector. And every commercial outfit will often like segment groups of people and users.
Sure.
So the segment here is what I'm going to call a super giver. So a super giver is defined as someone who just shares loads of things, blogs, thoughts, opinions, resources, papers, all of that stuff. In 2019, about 12% of Twitter users were super givers.
Yeah.
In 2020, that goes up to almost 20%. So almost 20% of the people, this isn't just Twitter, almost 20% of the teachers who are online, and most of those will have been on Twitter, you know, not all, but most, were sharing loads. Today, in 2025, that is down at 1%.
Sure.
That's 1%. And I think part of what's made, you know, obviously we have fewer people, and that is, you know, simple fact. But I think a lot of people as well are doing less stuff. They're sharing less things. Why that is interesting. But the simple fact is that they're not. And if the one thing that I would say to everyone, whether you're new, old, coming fresh, coming back after a break, whatever it is, whoever you are, just share stuff. Like, I know it's easy for me to say because we've just said like there's all these hazards of sharing your thoughts and opinions and stuff. But like getting involved and saying something interesting, or even liking stuff or commenting or replying. You know, the last couple of weeks I've been posting a lot of scenarios. So I've been working on on Carousel, and we've been working on the CPD platform, and I've been writing all of these scenarios about like common classroom stuff that happens because they're like the heart of the CPD platform. Like, how do you deal, like nuts and bolts, right?
Yeah.
Like, okay, so you're giving out the mini whiteboard pens and the child starts talking, right? What do you do, right? That kind of stuff. So it's not like grand philosophy. It's just like, how do you manage your classroom? And like, people are commenting and they're saying amazing things, right? Like really, really clever, really insightful, really thoughtful things. And then discussions are starting. And I think that's like a wonderful, wonderful thing. And crucially, for a lot of teachers, there is an extreme sense of disconnect. A lot of teachers, I felt this before I joined, my current school is called the Totteridge Academy, but before I joined TTA, I felt completely, sorry, I got a bit cold. I felt completely philosophically and pedagogically isolated. So I don't want to get too philosophical, but like a lot of the 20th century continental philosophy was about existentialism and was about the experience of the individual as distinct from the community that is around them, and the need to feel part of a community of action, a community of purpose. Mm. And like, when you're walking around a school and you're like, no one here thinks like me. No one here is interested in the things I'm interested in. No one here wants to teach the way that I want to teach. Nobody here thinks about education like in the way that I think about education. That doesn't mean like they're stupid, right? It doesn't mean they're ignorant. It's not like a disdain thing. It's just like a simple, I'm here and they're there, and you feel a strong sense of separation and isolation. And social media can be the place that allows that to blossom. And it's interesting, you know, I'm a big fan of banning social media for kids, for example, right? I think that's something that obviously we should do, but we shouldn't pretend that there are no negative effects of that. Like, let's take a kid who's 13 years old and like doesn't really like school, doesn't really have many friends, like doesn't find a way to talk about the things they're interested in with their friends. And then they go online and they find a forum of people who are talking about manga, for example, Japanese comics. And they're like, yeah, this is the thing. This is what I love. And like, they get to discuss that. They get to talk about it. They get to talk about different styles and different things that different people are interested in, the way it makes them feel. And they get to talk with people who are like them. I think that's a really powerful thing that we're going to lose. I'm okay with losing it, but we should accept that is a thing that would be lost. And I think like there's a lot of teachers out there who, if you go online and you look and you just read stuff and you find it interesting, like that's good. I have no problem with it. But you'll never feel that sense of connection until you hit that reply button. You'll never feel that sense of social cohesion and purpose and action until you hit that post button. You just won't. And if you want something to be great, you have to be a part of making it great. And being a part of making it great means, like, I'm going to post, right? I'm just going to keep posting and posting and posting. But ultimately, if I feel like I'm screaming into the void, I don't know, maybe I'll stop. Maybe I'll go somewhere else. Maybe I'll take my thoughts elsewhere. Maybe I'll give up and just do something else with my time. So it's like, it sounds like one of these really weird, needy Gen Z things, like, oh, encourage me, pat me on the back, clap me. Like that's not what I'm doing. What I'm saying is that if you want somewhere to feel like a community and to feel vibey, like, be a part of that as well. Like, just go for it.
I think that's a really good place, because I know Mr. Grocott has just reposted the show, and there are sort of out there, and thank you for the repost, by the way, Mr. G. There are communities on X that you can join, and I think there's one called the Edgy Twitter Community. There's others. I think that one's got over maybe 7,000 people in it. Now, what the advantage of that might be is that you can sort of click on that feed, and the only posts that show up in the feed are the people who are in that feed. So you don't see, if your sort of concern is, I don't want to see anything else beyond the posts of the people that are in this particular community, then that is one potential sort of avenue that you could explore on X that's still sort of there and wasn't there before. I mean, for me, it's been overall a negative that Musk took over Twitter. The only things that I would say have been and again, these don't really override the major negatives, which is so many people left, and it's become, he's damaged the sort of reputation of the platform and all that other stuff, right? But apart from that, his changes to the actual technical makeup of X, so seeing impressions, that's a tick for me. I think that's a good thing. I think the video, and if the upgrade hadn't been seen as such a bad thing, then being able to write extended posts is not a bad thing. There's been certain things that have certain changes to the technicalities of the platform that I think have actually been quite positive. Because if you took them, let's imagine the old ownership was in charge and they'd have done those things, I think people would have generally said they're pretty good change. They're pretty decent changes, like even encryption and all that stuff. There's some better things, but the problem is it was the political stuff, and that's what drove people to go. But as I said, one of the changes that was made is the creation of these communities, right? So you can now join a community and only see what's in that feed if that's an option that you want to explore as a new Twitter or X user, or somebody who's considering the platform thinking, I just don't want to expose myself to that stuff. Well, you could technically join and just join the community, and that's all you sort of look at. I agree with you in terms of engaging. Engagement has gone down for obvious reasons. There's less people on the site, but actually when you look at the impressions on posts, they're still relatively high. If you do a quick sort of scroll through users, you can still see that the posts are being seen by quite a lot of people. Good example is this. I posted a poll just yesterday about something, and it had 1,200 people voted in the poll, and it was very niche to teaching, the poll. So I'm not saying everybody you click vote is going to be a teacher, but it's very niche to teaching. 1,200 voted. I didn't particularly push it. It wasn't posted at a particularly good time and all the rest. It was just a poll. So that shows to me, okay, the impressions are there, and if for somebody to click on a poll answer when there's 4 options is a really easy thing to do. Well, it's much sort of more preferable for some than clicking a like or a retweet or a comment or whatever, but it shows that people are there still, right?
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know. It's one thought that came into my head. But it is a shame because Twitter has given me loads. I mean, the number of people I've met that I would have never met, including you, Adam, but lots and lots of people. So many great friends, so many great colleagues, networking and events, things that I never would have seen, blogs, videos, podcasts, news items, opinions I wouldn't have been exposed to, it's just been massively sort of influential and exciting. And obviously, Teachers Talk Radio really evolved out of that edgy Twitter community. So let's ditch Twitter. Let's move on to one of our. So, as I said, people have proliferated into lots of different directions. One of those has been Blue Sky. So, Adam, what are your views on Blue Sky?
So Blue Sky was in the second. So when Musk took over in 23, Threads launched, Threads by Meta, and there was a big push to try and get people to leave, because part of the problem with Musk wasn't just his personal politics, but it was the psychos that came with him, who were just almost out of nowhere, like feeds. Everything just became full of racism, full of like sexism, fascism, really disgusting stuff. So a lot of people left then. And the decline had been happening before, just again, to be really clear. So we're talking 70% in 2019, and we're talking down already to 60% in 22. And then in 23, it's down at 56, 57%. It then falls off a cliff down in 24 to about 35%.
Sure.
And a bunch of people tried to join Threads. That didn't work out, right? For various reasons. Basically, a critical mass didn't move.
And pre-Threads, there was also Mastodon. I don't know if you remember that.
Mastodon was always niche because you had to have like someone else's code or whatever. Yeah. But Threads, the problem with Threads is, I think, firstly, some of us jumped too early. So they hadn't quite sorted out all the tech and stuff like that. It was still kind of testy type thing. But also a lot of people, to get Threads, you had to have an Instagram account. And a lot of people were like, well, I don't really want to tie, like, A, I don't want to have an Instagram account. And B, if I do have an Instagram account, I don't really want to tie it to my like work social media. So that didn't happen. And then when Musk did the whole Hitler salute type Trump loving weird stuff going down, a whole bunch of people
have turned away from, which is great, destroy the platform and then just nonchalantly go, oh, I'm going to disassociate now and move on. Well, that's wonderful. You've destroyed.
I think he's a terrible human being. I think he's a terrible, terrible human being. I don't think anyone will be surprised to hear me say that. But anyway, so a lot of people left at that time to join Blue Sky, and Blue Sky did better and is doing better than Threads, but it just feels so dead. There's just like, I don't think there's a huge number of people on it. And in this, in the teacher tapped data, they basically excluded it completely because it's so few people who are online. So we don't even have stats for it.
Yeah,
so,
I did a quick scan of Blue Sky in the lead up to this show. And basically the biggest sort of UK education accounts all have really followership between, say, 3 and sort of 8,000 on Blue Sky. I mean, most are between sort of the 3 and 5 sort of bracket, 3 and 6 maybe, which shows you where the ceiling is, because the biggest education accounts on X still, even after the exodus, have in excess of 100,000, 200,000, huge numbers. So it shows you the difference. I mean, one comment I did have of Blue Sky users who said as a positive is they get less trash on their feeds. They get less sort of algorithm-driven content on their feeds. However, a negative, they said, is basically what you said is, well, number one, there isn't enough people there. Number two, there isn't enough engagement on there, as in like anything really, just sort of not arguments, but there's no spice. There's no sort of, I want to get into a conversation about something. People are posting on there. But yeah, it seems, I don't know, it just seems weird. And I'll tell you another thing about Blue Sky, which I found really, really weird at the outset, was when you could look up through a third-party website who had blocked who on Blue Sky.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I love that.
I found that really weird. I found it, I don't know, it's because everyone's like, yeah, it's really, it's all about sort of being more sort of ethical than but then people were using that to then sort of go, this person does. I don't know. It was a weird one.
No, so it was just because, I think it's just because of the technical way it's set up, because it's a public server.
Probably.
It's not like a commercial outfit, so the data is all public. It's something like that.
Yeah, I don't know. But anyway, so Blue Sky, yeah. In terms of usership, I think you're right. There's more UK educators on Blue Sky than there are on Threads, but there's probably more American educators on Threads. So I actually think engagement on Threads is much higher than it is on Blue Sky. When you take a quick scroll through hashtags on education on Threads, tends to be quite a few posts on there that get quite a bit of engagement. However, that engagement is spread across much more of a random mix of sort of engagers.
I haven't been on Threads in a year and a half.
So they're the alternatives. So what we've ended up with there is that split. And then, of course, you have the emergence of LinkedIn. Now, I've heard quite a few people say, not loads, but some have said, yeah, I'm turning to LinkedIn. LinkedIn seems to be the place to go. Thoughts? LinkedIn?
Yeah, LinkedIn is an interesting one. So LinkedIn obviously historically was like a CV and recruitment type thing. And then it acquired a bit of a reputation in the corporate world for just being full of like absolute corporate braggadocio and nonsense. One of my favorite Twitter accounts actually is called The Worst of LinkedIn, which is where you get where they repost all of the stuff like someone talking about like there was one about chicken. Someone who like was staying over at a hotel and like cooked a chicken in their kettle because they didn't want to like waste company money or something. That's like, oh, it's nonsense. So that kind of vibe. I think in terms of the overall numbers that are hitting LinkedIn, as of May, April, Jan, Feb, March, April, May, as of May of this year, LinkedIn is just under 10%. Okay. And overall, it's like showed a slight decrease from 19 to 20, and then a gentle increase from 2020, where it looks like it's about 5% up to this year, where it's about 9%.
Is that
but the key,
yeah.
But the key thing is that when they ask head teachers, so secondary head teachers, about 41% are on LinkedIn. So it's kind of disproportionate. It's disproportionately weighted to secondary leadership.
Yeah.
Now, I think technically, I think LinkedIn is very weird, and I've been trying to use it for the last 6 weeks or so, and I don't really understand exactly how it works, like the connect and the follow and that kind of thing, the subscribes. I don't really get it, but whatever. You've got a feed, and I think like aside from those weird technical things, the technical setup is almost perfectly suited for education, debate, and discourse. Why? Because you can post, okay? People can comment. Your posts can be long. Your comments can get threaded. So you can reply directly to specific comments, which you can't do on Twitter. So they get nested, so you can actually follow a discussion or disagreement. There's a block function. There's no anonymous accounts. So you have to be, not have to, but most accounts are verified. I don't know any anonymous accounts on LinkedIn. And that also makes discussion easier because like you're not going to call someone a Nazi or you're not going to call a school Auschwitz if your like name and picture and school organization are listed in all of your information there. So that stuff becomes a bit less likely. I found the feed quite interesting as well in that it often brings back stuff from quite a long time ago. So I'll often see things from a few.
What I've noticed on the algorithm side is, so if you post, I don't know if this is true, I'm going to have to double check this, but if you post something on LinkedIn, you seem to get 3 hits. You get 3 bites of the cherry. So when you post, you get the instant, which you would like on Twitter or Blue Sky or Threads. You get the instant thing where it appears on someone's thread, but it may get in there. And then you'll get like within a 24-hour period, you'll get whatever engagement you're going to get from that post. Then, even if that post gets very little engagement, so even if it got minimal engagement, it could be shown again in 1 week, and then it tends to be shown again in 3 weeks. Now, don't ask me why. It's just something I seem to have noticed is you're getting 1 week and 3 weeks. So
I have a similar experience. That they just I don't know how, I don't know why, but it does tend to come back, and that's not. I don't have a problem with that.
That's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing.
I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Because it, let's say I don't log on today, but I do log on in 3 or 4 days' time, I still get to see interesting stuff. The real problem with LinkedIn is more sorry, is more like cultural, that I just find I don't enjoy the content that does well on LinkedIn. So a lot of the stuff that does well on LinkedIn is like people taking photos of themselves on like their way to a conference and talking about how wonderful the conference is. And then they'll get like a bajillion likes. And I'm like, but for what? Like, well, you know, there's a lot of people getting new jobs, a lot of people like passing qualifications and stuff like that. And I'm like, great, like well done. Like there's no reason why you shouldn't celebrate that. But like that stuff does so well. And then I'll see a friend of mine who's posted something like really quite thoughtful. And I'm like, that's really interesting. And it's got no engagement, right? So, and so that's one problem, the nature of the content. The second problem for me is the absolute incoherence of ideas on the platform. And the reason for that is because there's no culture around debate there. There's no culture around disagreement. And so I'll look down my feed and I'll see things that are like the direct opposite of each other, one on top of the next, and the same people liking and clapping and giving positive comments about both. And I'm like, that just doesn't make any sense, right? And then for me, the big problem is this. Actually, I'm going to give you two big problems. The second one you'll really like. So the first big problem is where every idea in the world benefits from critique. Okay? Whatever your idea is, whatever you believe, whoever you are, every idea benefits from critique. But importantly, not just critique from people that you normally agree with, but even critique from people who are wrong. Like, even if your basic opinion is like right, if there is such a thing, and someone is disagreeing with you and they are wrong, right? The thing they are saying is wrong. They still can make your idea better. Yeah. And without that, all you have is just people just spewing stuff. And it was the criticality of Twitter that drove such change. It drove people to reflect. It drove people to change their practice. My practice changed by 180 degrees, right? Because of people telling me I was wrong, right? It was challenging. It was difficult. It was hard, but it's made me a better person and a better teacher. And LinkedIn doesn't have that culture at all. Doesn't mean it never will. Doesn't mean it can't. Doesn't mean it's impossible. But it doesn't at the moment. And what that results in is that you end up with people with quite loud voices, often with a lot of nomials in their names. They've all got FCCT, they've all got their masters, their MPQs, everything. And that's fine. Like, I don't have a problem with you saying that you've got stuff like that. But the way that LinkedIn seems to work is that those people just, they get the elevation, they get the things said. And again, like, I don't necessarily have a problem always with what's being said. Yeah. But it's the lack of critique makes me, and I do sometimes have problems with what's being said, but the lack of critique makes me feel uncomfortable and nervous because people can present ideas and they don't get critically challenged. The next problem following from that, and this is going to be a bit spicier. So we mentioned Nick Gibbs, or Nick Gibbs. We'll mention Nick Gibbs again. So there's Nick Gibbs got a book out, and there's going to be a book launch in a couple of weeks. And I was talking to someone about this literally today, someone who works for an education charity, because we were talking about structures, we were talking about systems, and we were talking about who people listen to, whose voices are heard. And I said, at this launch event, which I'm very lucky I got invited to, very nice, I'm looking forward. It's in town. It's the first fancy event I've ever been invited to. I have tremendous jealousy, by the way. This comes with people with an ego. One of the worst things in the world is when people get invited to the DFE for me. I'm like, what about me? Like, why wasn't I invited? Like, for me, that's like worse than a splinter. That's like, it's like torture, you know. And I'm completely open about it. I have no problem. Like,
but isn't that the funny thing with that though is it does go in. It is cyclical. I mean, pre-Labour coming in, I guess there was if you like in inverted commas a crowd.
Wait. Let me finish. Because you're dead right. But I'm going to go to it, right? So at this launch for Nick Gibbs' book, I don't know who will be there, but I can reasonably guess, right? Okay. There'll be a lot of people with MBEs. There'll be a lot of people with OBEs. There'll be a lot of MAT chief executives. A lot of people working for the various think tanks and stuff like that. And just to be clear, I think a lot of these people are fantastic, right? Fantastic, worth listening to, brilliant. But who won't be there? Who won't be there? I'll tell you who won't be there. The head teacher of a 40% pupil premium school in the middle of nowhere in Sheffield, who's trying desperately to turn a school from having progress rate of minus 0.8 to progress rate of minus 0.6. That person won't be there. Who else won't be there? The teacher who works in a school on the South Coast dealing with a white working class coastal community where there are no aspirations, nobody wants to do anything, and they're struggling to get kids in the door. And some of those people will be doing an amazing job, right? Like, I think, like Michaela, for example, what they've done is incredible, okay? But I don't think it's any less incredible to take a school that's performing at, say, -1 and take it up to minus 0.2. I think that's also incredible. But the person who did that, they're not going to be at the fancy events. Right?
I know we've debated this before, Adam, but do you believe... Oh, before I ask you that question, can I mention Hachette Learning again? Yes, I can. Hachette Learning, guys, our sponsors on the show, massive supporters of Teachers Talk Radio. Head over to Hachette Learning, Google them. Yes. No, he hasn't got it. I thought I was going to.
No, I was going to get it. Here, look, it's Nick Gibbs' book. See, that's Hachette. No, that's
brilliant.
So, no, my book here, Teaching Secondary Science: A Complete Guide. There we go.
That is Hachette. There you go. It's on the Hachette website.
Used to be John Kurt.
There you go. Used formerly John Kurt. So head over there. You have all sorts of titles you can enjoy on the Hachette Learning website. I was going to ask you, we've debated this before. You dropped it in there, sort of the school that went from 3.4533 to 2.6130. Sorry, that's me sort of just mimicking people who talk about progress A like it's the law as well. But I know we've debated this before, but I'm very cynical about I know progress 8 might be better than some other measures. But okay, let me present you a scenario. And we won't go too far down this road.
No. We don't need to, because I agree, right? I don't mean to say that it's like the only metric.
Yeah, okay, fair dues. I'll characterize it in a 3 sentences if I can. I think that data in education can be fairly easily manipulated by manipulating contextual factors. I'm not talking about the obvious things like off-rolling. Yeah, I'm not talking about the big ticket items of, off-rolling. Well, no, because that doesn't really, it still happens, but probably not as much as it used to, because, there's a lot's got under the bridge on that, right? But there's other ways, there's other things, there's other statistics around particular students who do particularly well, and, cohort numbers and different cohorts being, I can't. So when you said the bit that triggered me, this is like a classic Twitter debate now, but with us face to face. The bit that triggered me was when people say I did it, but you were talking about head. It's like he did it. He got it from 2 to 1, and it's like there's a heck of a lot in that statement. Do you know what I mean? And then you've got a guy down the road who hasn't been able to do that. But it might be literally, I'm sorry, it's my opinion, it might be nothing to do with what that person has or hasn't done. And actually, that school might be a nicer for the staff. Mm-hmm. Sorry, you got it. There you go.
I'm not going to disagree with you at all on any of that. I think I've seen too many schools now, so I'm very lucky. I get to go visit schools. People call me up. They say, Adam, will you come help us with teaching and learning, curriculum, leadership management, school improvement planning, whatever it is. And I get to see a lot of schools with positive progress rate, schools with negative progress rate, schools with in the middle progress rate. And I see all sorts, and I hear all sorts of stories. So for example, let's say a school at the Year 6 prospective parents evening says, these are the rules. If you don't like them, don't apply. Okay, so that's legal. You're allowed to do that. But obviously that's going to make a difference to your outcomes. Let's say a school, my school, the Totteridge Academy, for example, has put into its admissions criteria that if you are on free school meals or eligible for free school meals, you are more or less guaranteed a place at the school, right? Like, you can't now compare those two schools, right? Because statistically, one is choosing to have worse outcomes. because statistically across the country, students who are on free school meals do worse than students who aren't. So one school is choosing, you can go to the Sutton Trust have a website called, if you go to Sutton Trust and you search school intake, they've got a map and you can type in the name of the school and it will tell you the pupil premium differential between that school and the area it serves. So there will be some schools who have amazing Progress 8, but like they've got half the number of students who are on free school meals as everybody else around them. Like, again, they're not necessarily actively doing anything. Not necessarily, right? I'm not accusing anyone of doing anything. I'm saying that.
Another example, and this is probably the only time I'm ever going to sound like Michael Gove, but there are also other factors, such as, when you think about particular groups of students by sort of cultural background, EAL,
first generation immigrant, second generation immigrant, it all makes a difference.
The value they place on education is huge, but a lot of them can be pupil premium, right? A lot of students who've recently come into the country can be pupil premium, but of course they can make rapid progress. They can make way more progress than the average because their parents are pushing them majorly. The investment in education is huge, but then on your Progress 8 figures, that looks absolutely insanely good.
Yeah, and their key stage 2 outcomes are lower, right? Because if a kid comes to the country where they're 8 or 9, they don't speak any English, they're going to do badly in their stats, but then they'll learn it and they'll be fine. And I've got friends who teachers at school where they have a PFI contract, and the school just is spending a fortune just servicing the PFI contract. And like, how is it fair to compare them to a startup school that doesn't have that? So what I was trying to say earlier is that there are schools, there are leaders and senior leaders and teachers out there who are doing amazing work in difficult contexts. And that doesn't show necessarily in the data. It doesn't show necessarily in the post-nomials. These people might not be writing articles in the tests. They might not be being invited to the fancy events. They might not be speaking at the conferences, but maybe they should. And maybe we're not good at finding those people. And partly it's because it's difficult. But I think that at the moment,
but also
a platform like LinkedIn isn't helping that.
I totally agree with that. But also, sort of throwing the challenge out there, do people like yourself, like other people who have, you mentioned you have followers on X, followers on various websites, whatever. There's lots of people out there who have that level of audience or capacity or influence or whatever. Is it also on those people to, I wouldn't go as far as like de-platform themselves, but just sometimes say, do you know what, right? I've got John here, right, down the road who I know is in fact, I don't know who John is. I just know there's a school down the road that is a really tough school to work in, right? Really tough school to work in. I won't mention their name, but it's actually, there is somebody who currently hosts with Teachers Talk Radio, who they told me the school that they worked in, and I was like, that is a really, really challenging place to work. And this person was attending an event on a Saturday in their own time to try and sort of think about what they were doing, to try and improve what they were doing. And, I just think there's people like that, and it's all well and good going, we need more of these voices, What are you going to do then? How are you going to get that person that you met at that particular time? How are you going to give them more of a platform? How are you going to make sure that they can advance their career in the same way that you did, or you had a chance to, that they might not have a chance to, because they're working in a place where CPD is just maybe not a thing as much. It's not, in fact, it's not even that it isn't a thing. They just don't have the energy to do it because they're managing terrible behavior all day, right? It's a reality. So that would be my sort of thing of, I agree with you. And it's like, that sort of ecosystem of LinkedIn, for example, is a good example of it. It's like, what can people who already have particular positions do to boost those people? That would be my question to you: is what can you do? What can people actually do?
Yeah, so you're giving me like the Uncle Ben speech, basically. That's what you're doing here. Yeah. So look, I want to be really clear. I think there's always more that I can only ever speak for myself. Okay. So there's always more that I could do. Okay.
Sure.
I am proud isn't the wrong word, isn't the right word, but I know there are some people that I have helped, sometimes what's the word, explicitly, and sometimes not explicitly. There are people who email me to ask for help and support that I do not necessarily with anybody knowing. I get at least one DM a day from someone I've never heard of in my life and will probably never meet, and I will help them if I can. Every email that anyone ever sends to me asking for a question or support will get a reply. So, you know, I will never scroll past a blog, an education blog, without reposting it, even if I've not read it. It's just getting reposted, no question. I try. There are schools in those brackets that you're describing that I think are amazing, but for whatever reason, and I will make small connections behind closed doors, you know, so there'll be a school that I'll go to and I'll say, you know what, you're in a really similar context to this other school that I know that are doing absolutely incredibly. You've not heard of them. You're about 12 months behind them. Here's the email address of David, who I worked with there. I'm sure he'd love to hear from you, having checked, obviously, with David first. But a lot of them, to tell you the truth, aren't interested in the public profile.
Yeah, they're not. No, but there's other things though that but that's exactly for me where the reason then they're not interested in the public profile, but also a commonality that I found within many of the people that you're describing is imposter syndrome. Is a feeling of what could I possibly have to say that is as good as you or you or you? What, you know, where's my place in this? Why should what I have to say be better? And that's probably because their confidence has been battered. Maybe not, you know, it might not have been. It may just be that they've never been exposed to, you know, being able to maybe have a voice. But I don't necessarily think they want a public profile. But when somebody is given the opportunity to have a voice and have a say, it 9 times out of 10, the offshoot of that is usually pretty positive for that person, whether it be in terms of their actual career inside a school, or if they want to, say, for example, just get a promotion inside their school. You know, by an example I was going to give is if, for example, somebody is invited to, and this, you know, would happen, I guess, fairly regularly for you know, a subset of people, you know, come and speak on a panel, right? And there's the only people on the panel are people who sort of are influential beyond the realms of the classroom, beyond the realms of the schools and stuff. One direct way, I guess, that one thing a person might do is say, well, number one, who else is on the panel? We get someone else on who fits the profile that we're talking about. But also they could occasionally just give it up themselves and actually say, you know what, like I've got this person who might be better than me, and maybe not better, just a different person who can offer something, who is really keen to do this. I take your point, but sometimes people need persuading. I'm not saying completely. I'm not saying we should go up to every teacher. So we're going to spend an hour now persuading you that you should like speak at an event or post a blog. No, but there's a lot who, when you just give them a general note, yeah, actually, I do want to do that. Actually, I do, but I'm too scared to say that I do because I'm too intimidated. I've got too much imposter syndrome. I've believed the narrative. They might have consultants visiting their school all the time, and they're there going, "Oh, they're the experts. I'm not an expert. They're the experts. They're coming in as the expert, and I've been here for 10 years or whatever it is, and I've been doing a really good job, but they're more expert than me." Well, not necessarily. They've just gone down a different.
Yeah, I'm not going to disagree with that at all. The thing about imposter syndrome is So there's a thing called in psychology called theory of mind, which is about your ability to understand other people and the way that they think. And for someone like me, my theory of mind is really deficient when it comes to imposter syndrome because I have a massive ego. So I can't understand. I just can't understand why anybody. But I appreciate that it is a thing that affects people. Maybe it should affect me a bit more, but such is life. So yeah, like I'm not going to disagree with that at all. And sometimes people need a little bit of a push. Sometimes people also know they just don't care, right? Like there is a head teacher I know who is genuinely like next level. Yeah, absolute, no question, next level. One of the best, who has absolutely no interest in a public profile. Why? Because that doesn't help their school. But and when they do foray into the public, it's because they think it will help them recruit, or they think maybe it might bring a bit of money for the school to be able to better serve the students or whatever. So they're like relentlessly, and perhaps that's why they're the best head teacher, because they're just relentlessly focused on like what's the best thing for my school and my school community. And the system doesn't work if everybody thinks like that. But I don't think it's for me to say that an individual head teacher shouldn't think like that. So it's a complicated thing.
I totally agree, but there's nothing that would stop that head teacher being invited to a book launch or a conference or a panel. Like there's nothing stopping, and then they can say no if they don't want to do it. They can say no. There's nothing stopping them from being those sort of people from being invited and sort out. People should find those people, right? It takes more time, sure. The easier thing is just go, who are the 10 biggest names in whatever? They're the experts. Let's do it. It takes more time to go, that person published a couple of blogs, but they're there and they haven't got as many followers, or they haven't got as much of. But you know what? Let's go in that direction. They're currently doing it, But coming back to LinkedIn, it is for me. You nailed it pretty much. It can be a little bit salesy, That's the only thing is people replying for the sake of replying and boosting a post rather than actually having anything tangible to say. People tagging people in just because they're tagging people in to get more engagement on the post. And then there's a lot more business people on LinkedIn, which is okay. But in terms of, like you said, discourse around teaching, it maybe can be a bit more challenging to really see through that and get to some real, content, so to speak.
Yeah, well, I look in the mirror as well. Like, I'm a salesperson. I sell things, right? I sell things to schools. I sell things to head teachers. That's important to me.
I mean, everybody sells something, don't they? Everybody sells something.
Maybe yes.
Not for money. It could be an idea, but
sure. But my family eats because I can sell things, right? And if I can't sell things, then I have to reevaluate my financial situation, and I have people that depend on me being able to sell stuff. But like that, that's not my prime directive. My prime directive is that the things that I sell, I think are great, and I think will make a difference to teachers and school leaders and stuff like that. And what that means is that for me, it's like I get torn because I want to post stuff, even though I post a lot about AI on LinkedIn, but there are now a handful of us, even less than a handful of people who have a relatively high profile who are extremely skeptical about the use of AI in educational contexts. And I know for a fact that if I just hopped onto the other side of the fence, my engagement with long, thoughtful posts, like I write a long, thoughtful post critiquing the use of AI in education, and I get a small amount of engagement. Whereas someone puts up some like absolute slop, like things that have been produced by AI and says that, no, this is wonderful, we've revolutionized education.
I'll tell you what, there's way more AI posts on LinkedIn than there are anywhere else.
Tons.
And
people using AI.
Why are you liking it? It's an AI generated post. Like, anyway.
Yeah, but this is exactly the point. That's getting hundreds of likes, loads of engagement, loads of comments. And I don't know. It's difficult. It's difficult because on the one hand, I think it is a good technical platform. And on the one hand, on another hand, I'm going to do three hands here. And on another hand, it's got a lot of really cool and interesting people who I want to hear from. But then on the third hand, I just find it very difficult as a medium to engage with.
I think overall it's good. And my personal view, it's probably the best of like the rest, if you like. That we started with X. If we were to look at like Blue Sky Threads, LinkedIn, all the others, like probably LinkedIn for me would probably come out on top despite the things we've discussed. Yeah. Anyway, Adam, listen, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me, Tom.
Really good conversation, a lot of fun, a lot of good insights, a lot of good conversation. I feel like I'm doing an AI-generated LinkedIn post. We might like find a lot of really great insights. I'm really humbled, Adam, that you've spent the time with me. But
Tom, I'm feeling inspired.
But seriously, thanks very much. It's really, really good, and speak to you again soon. Cheers, Adam.
Cheers, mate. Be well. Bye.
Bye. So that was Adam Boxman. We've been discussing social media for teachers. I really hope you've enjoyed the show this evening. Hope you've taken something away from it, even if it's just information about where the profession's at on social media and how things are going. Just a little shout out as well. I didn't get to mention it during the show. Carousel Learning are supporting the Teachers Talk Humanities event in September. So if you're a teacher of history, geography, or RS, it's on Saturday, the 20th of September. And I know we were discussing just during the show Teacher Voice, and we were talking about how to, how it would be great to sort of have more teachers and leaders who, in the space and talking and sharing and being part of it. That's a great event to be part of. It's a Teachers Talk Radio event. It's on the Saturday, the 20th of September. It's completely free for a teacher or leader to attend. It's history, geography, and RS, and Carousel Learning are a sponsor at that event. So thank you very much, Carousel. Do join us Saturday 20th in central Manchester. You can find the link on LinkedIn or just have a look at the Teachers Talk Radio X feed, and it's pinned on there if you fancy coming along. Final shout out to Hachette Learning, formerly John Catt Educational, for supporting all Teachers Talk Radio shows. They are fantastic. So thank you ever so much. I'll be back next week. And yeah, hope you enjoyed the show. Hope you're enjoying your summer holiday, and we'll see you soon. Bye now.
Outstanding, a world-class vision, a world-class this.
I'm a real leadership geek, honestly. I've spent my whole career reading books and chatting to people.
I just find the whole thing and the announcement, the way it's been announced, bizarre.
If you could move away from a model where teachers are so intensely focused.